internal, like when I first got into it, I was like, it's about this external, get your environment, but it's actually about you and your environment. For this, it's been such an evolution now that it's not just about fixing your home and doing things with your house. It's how you operate in your environment and balancing and harmonizing yourself as well. So it's a much deeper practice than I would have first comprehended.
Welcome to the Relational Parenting Podcast. I'm Jennifer Hayes, a parent coach and 20-year childcare veteran. Each week, I sit down with my own father, Rick Hayes, and discuss the complicated issues that parents face today, as well as some of the oldest questions in the book. From the latest research and the framework of my relational parenting method, we offer thought-provoking solutions to your deepest parenting struggles. Added bonuses include intergenerational wounding discussions and guest childcare experts. We will also start taking your parenting questions in episode 5, so be sure to comment with your biggest questions or email me directly at jenny@jennyb.co. Let's get started. Patricia Lohan is the creator of Powerhouse Feng Shui and author of The Happy Home, a guide to creating a happy, healthy, wealthy life and become a business powerhouse using Feng Shui. She helps parents make their homes and businesses magnetic to money, luck, and blessings. She shows you what they don't teach in business school, what lies between the lines, and your top secret tool for success. She's helped thousands of people across the globe embrace Feng Shui and creates lasting changes in their businesses, homes, and lives. Patricia has seen firsthand the power of the mind, surroundings, and inner healing, clearing and aligning everything so it works holistically. She loves entrepreneurship with 15 years of experience running and growing 3 successful startups of her own. Welcome back, everybody, to the Relational Parenting Podcast. We are here this week with Patricia Lohan or Lohan?
Lohan. Perfect.
Lohan. Awesome. And Patricia, are you a Feng Shui master? What is your title?
I am a Feng Shui. I don't know. Master feels like a little bit like, whoa. I'm a Feng Shui expert. I know a lot about Feng Shui. I've helped thousands of people with Feng Shui, but I don't know if it makes me a master in terms of this ancient practice that is like thousands of years old. But I do and help people with this incredible process. So that's me.
That reminds me of a description. Jenny and I did karate for a while. That reminds me of a description of ranks in karate. You know, there's no Feng Shui emperor. It's just something people have been doing for thousands of years. You know, don't worry about your rank. You know, that's cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I love it.
And, if it's really... Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. That's okay.
If it's, if what I'm doing is really helping people and making a difference, and I think this practice for me, Feng Shui, I'm always learning more from it. And I'm always learning more from as I work with more clients and more people. It's an evolving process. It's a journey of growth, and Feng Shui is about flow and harmony and balance. And it's an internal, like when I first got into it, I was like, it's about this external, get your environment, but it's actually about you and your environment. For this, it's been such an evolution now that it's not just about fixing your home and doing things with your house. It's how you operate in your environment and balancing and harmonizing yourself as well. So it's a much deeper practice than I would have first comprehended.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's almost spiritual in a way. Like I've seen the quote 100 times, that your external environment is a reflection of your internal one. And I think the older I get, the more accurate that becomes. Because there's like parts of my house that are like very well planned and put together. And then there's like there's a room here or a corner there that I'm just like, I don't know what to do with that. So I'm just going to ignore it until someday I have time for it. And I think that happens in life too. We prioritize different pieces and parts of our lives at different times and different phases and different stages.
Yeah.
And getting all of your ducks in a row, I don't know that that's even a realistic thing, to have every duck in a row all at once. I think that we are regularly prioritizing what we can and cannot hold at any given time. But I love that you say that Feng Shui is, it's an external practice, but it also has evolved and you realize that it's an internal one, because I think that applies to most people in most places of life, of like, nothing really changes until we do the inside work.
Yeah. And I think that what I've realized is that as people have come into our world and into our powerhouse Feng Shui world, is that it's a really nice, subtle, easy way to start changing your life. Like becoming more aware of your environment. It's not like I need to go and shake up and fix everything inside of me. That when I start to actually become more conscious of my physical environment, if I start to more look at what have I got in my home, what areas are being neglected, because every part of your home represents a different part of your life. So when you have this extra layer of information, you can go, oh, right, well, this is why my relationships are not going so well. This is why my kids are fighting, because of that area that seems to be overlooked. And it's unconscious. Like we don't realize it. So when you have this new layer of consciousness about your physical environment, it starts to illuminate things. And then, it's that quote, like, you don't know what you don't know until you do, and then you do, and you're like, oh, okay, like I didn't do this picture or that photo or this thing with the setup of my children's bedroom or whatever it is that changes it, and then you're like, oh, now I can change that. So that's really powerful. And I love that you kind of picked up on the idea of like Feng Shui being spiritual. And one of the things is that it does come from the philosophy of the Tao. It comes from that Chinese lineage. It's a 5,000-year-old practice. It's connected with Chinese medicine. It's connected with that 5-element theory. But also, like, fundamentally, all of that theory comes from the philosophy of the Tao. And the Tao is about tapping into the flow of nature, into the flow of life. And how I see it, if you do acupuncture in your body, it's about bringing your body into balance. But when we just look out into nature, all nature is working in harmony. The rivers, the trees, they're just in these different cycles. And what we want to do with Feng Shui, and what we're doing Feng Shui, is bringing that sense of harmony into the home. And then it links in with ourselves, like that our bodies are also in harmony, that our minds and hearts are in harmony. And that is, how do we do that? You're connected to source, you're connected to spirit, you're connected to the life force energy, and you're allowing it to happen. And so that's it is for me, and has been a very like spiritual practice.
Very interesting. It's kind of like immersing yourself in the flow. One of the visualizations I use for spirituality is being in a stream and going across stream, or fighting the stream, or being with the stream, and I like that idea of, okay, immerse yourself in the stream and get with it. Okay. All right. I like that explanation.
Yeah. Well, it's like
even just
I was just going to say, it's like an ecosystem is the thought I had, like a functioning. When I was building my garden for the first time last year, I just kept thinking of like there's the plants, the co-planting, and the plants that help each other and feed the soil and help each other grow. And then there's the plants that if you plant them together, they'll steal nutrients from each other. And then there's also like the water source and the like the drip irrigation system, and each different kind of plant needs a different amount of water. And then there's also like this tree that overhangs, and it gets a certain fungus on its leaves. And if those leaves get into the fall and get into the garden without being picked up quickly, then that fungus will get into the garden and disrupt the ecosystem, like all these different pieces. And I just had that visual when you were describing like nature and the reflection of that, like our homes, our homes, house us, but then it's also, there's relationships inside of the home, and then a relationship with ourselves, and how we move and communicate and feel. And yeah, it's just like, it's creating a functional, healthy ecosystem inside the house.
100%. And, there's a few things there, but the first is that idea of like, well, if you were to kind of draw a symbol that would represent feng shui, it's that idea of that yin and yang symbol. Like, that interaction, like, if it goes too yang, it's too busy. Like, and every house, what we want is to be in this center line, which is exactly what you're talking about, the river. We want to be in the flow. We don't want to be like too much. If there's too much flow, it's too much. If it's like a tiny trickle, there's no movement. So then it's like, what is this like center line where we can be in harmony and flow? Like that's essentially what the Tao is, and living the Tao and breathing it within your home. And as you talked about the different parts of the garden, like that's exactly what I'd be looking at in people's houses, but from, partially from an energetic, like an invisible energetic plane, partially from a aesthetic play, like space, in terms of, if we have like a lot, like just think about that yin and yang energy. If a child's bedroom is painted all red, or a child is like, is in a racing car bed, it's like a red racing car bed, fire element, it's a race car. And we're like, why is my child like, why is he not sleeping very well? And you're like, well, it's a race car and it's red, which can create aggression, anger, frustration. You're like, this is the element of fire. It's like nature is like, it's like a creative force, and it's great for like passion and energy in certain parts of your home, but like not in your kid's bedroom,
Right.
I remember as a kid wanting one of those. I don't know if it was the 60s when those became popular, but that's so funny, because it's like the world makes us want stuff that is not very good for us sometimes, That's cool. That's funny.
It is so true. The world makes us want things. And this is where even, I just have this thing right now where I'm like, Pinterest and Instagram are like, I don't know, they're like a pest for people to trying to achieve this like perfection, this like perfect home. Like if it has to like be like this, and achieving that, and just creates so much stress. And when I come on to shows or I'm talking to someone, I'm like, that is not what feng shui is about. It's not about it being able to come out of a magazine. It's about everybody getting on well, and your kids happy, and you're doing good in your business and your career, and you're feeling good. It's not about this like striving for social perfection and be able to post everything, so it's like, look at me, I have this. And then, but everybody's like not happy in the house, or unhealthy, or, there's lots of other things going on.
I kind of think of it as like, setting yourself up for success, setting up your environment for success, because each human being has different needs and different abilities and different weaknesses and strengths and all of these things. And I'm coming at this from kind of an ADHD perspective right now in my own life, of how I've altered my own environments. Like, I know now that it was a coping skill, but I didn't before I knew I had ADHD, which was most of my life. I just did these things automatically because I knew, like, oh, if I don't leave this out as a visual reminder when the next time I walk by it, I'll forget to do that task. Or if I don't put it in my calendar, if I don't write it down, or if I don't do this. And one of my, I realize now that was an adjustment I made for myself to cope with ADHD. Whereas like, I also want things like I want everything to have a home in an assigned place, but I don't always put things back in their homes, because I leave visual reminders all around the house for myself for different things. So it's kind of like it's just like this catch-22 for me sometimes. But anyway, that's kind of how I currently view feng shui is kind of setting your environment up for whatever your needs, your family's needs, your kids' needs, whatever your needs are. And then each room has its own function, and each, space and has its own flow. And I kind of picture you as someone who can come in, you ask all the questions and you figure out what the family is struggling with, and maybe what their needs are specifically. And then you're able to kind of design and help build a space around their specific needs, versus it being where you walk in and you're like, every living room needs to look like this, every bedroom needs to look like this, every office needs to look like this.
So definitely there's a lot, like one of the things that as you were talking is like I like to talk to and tell people about, the idea of like making your home like a vision board for your future. What is your vision? Like, for families, where would you like to travel to? Do you have pictures of that up? Like, how do you want to feel in your house? Is it like, is there just like sarcastic comments up on post signs, the sarcastic signs, or is it like, family together, or artwork that feels really empowering and joyful and playful? Like, what is the energy that you want to feel? Or is it dark, single images of people? I've seen the gamut of artwork and every that you can imagine. And honestly, it literally dictates the vision of it literally tells the story of what's happening in the home. When I look at the art and the paintings, just that alone is one part. And that can be such a fascinating thing for people to even start looking at it. It's like, well, in my office right now, I have like some different, I've got all, Jenny asked me about like the unicorn and the pictures, and it's so everything that's right behind me, actually, except just the stay weird one, which is just a personal reminder, just stay out of my keep being you, being Patricia. But the other pieces have like a very significant connection with me, like the little Vespa and the couple picture. My dad actually bought it for me. We were on holidays together in Italy, and he just was like, we were all there, and he's just like, I want to get you girls all like a momentum, a present from our holiday here. He passed a year ago, and he's here with me, and it's like that. And I picked it, and I was like, he just, it's like, that's so, but anybody coming into this office is going to see a picture of a Vespa. But that means like that picture means so much more. And the unicorn is from like my best friends and mentors that I just absolutely adore. So when you come into a space, you don't know, like, but on my sidewall, I have a big picture of the skyscape of New York with adventure on it, because I just love adventure. So every piece can tell a story, and it can mean something to you personally that nobody else needs to know about. But it can really have a massive impact in you and your environment. So from an art perspective, like that is like one of my favorite things for people to look at when they even just start with this concept. You talked about, me coming into a house and them telling me what they want. Well, I say, and telling me what's going on in their lives. And there's different layers to this. Like one layer is, what's on your walls, what's currently in your home that's here, and is it aligned with what it is that you want to create? I just come to mind, I remember looking at this lady's house, and around her house she had lots of single women pictures, a few family photos, several pictures of her kids and stuff, but there was very few of like groups of people together. And her husband worked away from home for years. Like he just never really was there.
Oh my.
He was there at the weekends or whatever, but she ended up being like a kind of single mom, and the art was just all single women everywhere, so it was just very, I was like, oh, that like mean, it's interesting when you can kind of like look at pieces, look at art. But when we would look at someone, and what I think, just going back to the very beginning when I was talking about like feng shui is about like flow and alignment, like everyone can have their vision of what they want to unfold for them. But we know that like life has its own force, and it knows, like God's spirit has usually a much bigger, better plan for us if we allow it. And when we work from a feng shui perspective, I work like on a individual. So every house is unique. So like feng shui is like acupuncture for your home. So every house has its own unique energy blueprint, and it's not like I'm going to do your house and tell you, Jenny, you put these remedies like this plant and this crystal and this stone and this metal and this water in the same areas as Rick. You do this. Yeah. No, it's completely different. But what we're really doing is putting in these elements, these specific ones, like it's like doing an astrology reading for a home, and we're putting them in to balance the energy of the home. And that then basically is going to, and what I've seen happen is that it brings that energy of flow into the home. So then those people's dreams, and big part of, as I said, that this work has really evolved into is that inner work around what is it that I want? Like, how can I create? What's my bigger vision? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And I've seen people like access deeper parts of them. Like I've had lots of people become way more creative, just like start painting or start doing different practices that blow my mind. I'm like, oh, wow. And unexpected things start to happen in their lives, or their children start to get on better, or deepening connections, because that's already there. The potential is already there, but the energetics may not have just been in place for it to happen. So what we start to do is the energetics. It's not necessarily about, here's the couch, put the couch here. Most of the time, the couch is in the only place that it can go, like in a living room,
So with the audience, right, that we're speaking to, mostly parents, tell me about a time or a family, or maybe a collective, maybe you have several families that you've helped as a collective memory of a time when maybe the children's behavior or the struggles that the parents were experiencing specifically in parenting were helped through setting up a more functional feng shui environment in their house.
Yeah, for sure. And what's so interesting about this journey with families and parents is that, I originally just was speaking to to women in general, like help you get more abundance or help with your career, and something really dropped more recently where we have a weekly wins in our community where people just share different things. And literally this morning, I can just read the one from, I read one this morning and I was like, oh, so this lady just joined our community a couple of weeks ago, and I know that she actually just joined for her business, and this is where it's fun. So she's like, I'm finding, let me see where she said it, I'm really enjoying quality time with my youngest kid, who for years didn't want to be near me. Massive shift. I also received wonderful email from my head teacher about my eldest daughter who's excelling in school. And this time last year, she wasn't even at school. So she's within a couple of weeks, and I just said to her, how amazing this list around your children. She said, I know, it's quite amazing with my children. I should have added that they're also getting on so well. They used to fight constantly. And then she's like playing my playlist in the background. She's like, my husband is wondering what kind of music she's listening to. But because I don't know what playlist she has, but it has AC/DC, and my husband loves AC/DC, so it's like one of these, which is so random because usually my songs are so positive and uplifting. So there's just this one random AC/DC thing that her husband came in and was like, what are you listening to? You've never listened to AC/DC. So Sherry came in, kind of found my world because she wanted help with her business. But as a default, what's unfolded is that, there's just it's created more harmony in her home for her kids. And the other one was, she just said that, and my husband got paid. So literally the other day, last week, she's just like, my husband hasn't been paid unexpectedly. And then she's like, oh, now he's got paid, so I was like, just let it go. Trust, it's all good. Don't worry. Your house is fluctuating. It's going to come. Focus on, what are you grateful for? And this is literally how I've ended up talking on these more parenting podcasts, because it's like they'll share, oh, this has happened in my business or this happened. And then all of a sudden it's all these trickle things with like, my kids are getting on better at school, or they're getting better grades, or they've just, we had like one, like we've had lots of different wins for different children, but with one lady whose daughter had intellectual disabilities, and basically like throughout her year, but they had feng shui the house, and she was like an amazingly bright student, but ended up getting into university and had this idea, and then got like a €50,000 grant, got featured in the media, like all of these things just started to unfold. And she's like, for most of my life, I've been like worried, like what will happen with my daughter. And now she's like got this business helping people with this grant. And it's just amazing. But what we start to see is just like, I think that the women get more confident and more flow, and then it just encourages everyone else, because I am a firm believer that, the parents are the thermometer of the home, like of the energy of the home. So once they start to, make changes and start to think, one of the things I invite people to do is to look at every area of your life, and from our feng shui perspective, I'm like, well, what is it you want? How do you want to feel? And what are you doing to bring you to that place? Like, what are you doing? Okay, you've got your feng shui remedies in, like the house is covered, your house is good now. But what are you doing yourself to step into that space? And then it just, I don't know, facilitates the children to do the same.
Sure, that's a skill or a sense you could pass along too to children. I hadn't thought about that. The whole idea of timing and this is like a technology to help control, or not control. This is like a technology to interface with the bigger spiritual picture, help you get in tune with that. That's I'd never thought of it that way before. That's really eye-opening for me. Very cool. You could do something about it. What are you doing to make this happen?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of pieces there with like, kind of typical manifestation advice, but then also something that we've talked about 100 times on the podcast is that the parents, I love that you said the parents are the thermometer of the home. Because they are the parents, the way that the parents, the moods of the parents, the energetics of the parents, the actions of the parents, the relationship of the parents all trickles down to the children, how the children act, how the children relate to themselves, to the world, to everything, their moods and behaviors, their energies. And we've said so many times on here that modeling is a parent's best tool. If you want your kids to do something or behave a certain way or have a certain habit or whatever it is, the first thing you need to do is look at yourself and say, am I doing that? Am I getting dressed first thing in the morning? Am I jumping,
am I regulated?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Emotionally, am I regulated, or am I yelling at my kid every time I get mad? Oh, well, why do you think your child's yelling every time they get upset? Things like that. And yeah, so I think that this could be such a fantastic tool for anyone, but for parents and families, and our audience here to really like think about this, to really look into this as something to add to your home life, to your ecosystem, as something that brings even more mindfulness. And I love that word harmony that you use, Patricia. I wrote that down because I always say peace. I'm like, can we bring a more peaceful environment, but I like harmonious, because that's like, things aren't always just peaceful, but if things are working together towards the greater good, that's the goal, right? And I think this could be, and I even said on our phone call, I was like, I need you to help me because I don't think I've announced this on the podcast yet, but we're almost 17 weeks pregnant. So if anyone has noticed my face exploding recently.
So exciting.
I've announced it on social media. Yeah, but I haven't said it out loud on the podcast yet. And so we're planning a baby nursery and all of these things. And so Lewis and I are for the first time really stepping into like being parents and like how our house is shifting and things are moving and how everything, like we're altering our ecosystem a lot right now. So when we were talking last, Patricia, I was just like, oh my gosh, I need all of your help. But yeah, back to the point is that I think this is a fantastic tool for any parent to have in their tool belt because it's real. It works. Yeah.
Like,
it is.
like what
and
we
like,
talked about before. Now we're conscious of it. Excuse me.
Yeah. Exactly. And like for me, I don't know, some things are like coming in that feel important to share here. You know, you just touched on like setting up the nursery, and you're just going to be so mindful of like setting up the nursery. And I do have a resource I can share with you for nurseries and for bedroom setup for parents. But in terms of like what I would say to parents listening is like, how are you looking after your own bedroom? Like, have you created your own sanctuary space for yourself and created a room that is like dedicated to you and your relationship? You know, this is one thing that I think is so important, is that we often spend a lot like our home space can get overlooked and we can pass by things and it'll do, but how are you tending to your own space? And this, as we know, ripples down into for the children as well as they see it. You know, are you creating a beautiful loving space for you and your partner? Like, I always invite my people to like make sure that your bedroom is just like very like that you walk in and you're like, oh, I just want to sleep. I know this is the most relaxing Zen place for me. You know, do you have a picture of yourself and your partner that really reminds you of a really happy time to really you know, I don't know, anchor in the positive energies from your relationship, that you've that like reminder and that anchor, you know. Also like keeping underneath the bed clear, like no work equipment or no work stuff in your bedroom. You know, I remember working with a lady in Manhattan, and we went into her space. She had this amazing apartment. They had loads of space that she wanted to call in a baby. And I get to their bedroom and I'm like, okay, so who's this? And she's like, oh, that's a picture of my grandfather. I was like, do you want him to watch you while you're in bed?
No.
She's like, oh no. So like family photos out, you know, family members photos out. And then and that's the same with like spiritual pictures. Like, I don't recommend them in your bedroom either. Like, you're like, you don't want like Jesus watching you. Like, no, like maybe you can't, you know, but from that, just no, it's disrespectful. It's just like a weird. So like no spiritual pictures. And then in the bedroom, you know, no families and friends. I've just seen like every type of picture in different bedrooms, but really just like what do we want our relationship to look like? And can we bring artwork that represents that, us two together? And any of the children, no family, no children, none in the bedroom. But the other thing is, you know, making sure it's, so that lady in New York, so I was like, granddad picture gone. And then beside the bed, it had like, there was space on both sides, but on her husband's side of the bed was literally piles of folders. And I was like, what is all that stuff? And she's like, oh, that's all his work files. And I'm like, so there's 3 people in this relationship in this bedroom, because literally it was as high as the bed of paperwork. And I'm like, that has got to go. Like, there is no way. Like, you want to call in a baby? Like, there's no space. And there's 2 people.
That's something else.
This guy has 2 relationships, like one with his work and one with you. So we have to change it.
Exactly.
So she got rid of that. And then the same with, you know, calling in a child. Like, is there space for the nursery? Okay, you're going to have a nursery. Right. Let's make space in the nursery. I remember one lady wanting to call in a child, and I was like, show me where the nursery is. She opened the room and it was literally like rows and rows and rows of railing with clothes and handbags and shoes. And I'm like, so where's the baby going to fit?
Yeah.
Like there's no space in here, so it's like this, it's like setting up your environment to be that vision, setting up this, making the space for it in your life, in your relationship, in your bedroom. So that's that idea of, in your bedroom, if you don't have it to be a space for connection, for romance, for the two of you, it's not going to happen anywhere else in the house. It's not, that sense of connection just isn't quite available. So creating your own bedroom, and that also then reflects back. So a lady had me on her podcast a few weeks ago, and we were chatting just about this Zen room, and she was like, oh my God, my children take individual turns to want to come up to my room because it's so beautiful and Zen. And then she's like, but I don't even want to step into theirs. And she literally was like, I'm getting off this. I'm going down to their rooms. I'm going to start organizing. I'm going to start thinking about like how I've done this for myself, but I haven't done it for them.
Yeah. And she'll need their help.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. Yeah. That'll be an interesting experience. Yeah.
For sure.
Makes me feel good, because I feel like our bedroom is very, and this is for the first time in this house that we moved into a year and a half ago. The last two bedrooms, so my husband and I's last house that we lived in, and then my house that I lived in before that, was very, very colorful, which I don't think there's anything wrong with, but it was very like vibrant colors and lots of stuff on the walls and plants everywhere. And I loved them. And they were very representative of like a phase or period of my life. And it was like my insides, like all over the room. And I loved it for that time. But when and then he and I moved in together, and we had we had royal purple as like the color on our bed. And the walls were gray, but we again had a bunch of like stuff that was representative of us on the walls, which is fine. It was just like every wall had stuff on it. And in this house, I really wanted a more neutral colored bedroom. I wanted less stuff on the walls. And I just, slowly over the years, I think, and I learned 6 or 7 years ago to quit putting photos in my bedroom. Photos of friends, family. I studied Hinduism for a while, and it was like all my god and goddess figurines, Devis and Devas, they belonged in different areas of the house, but you don't put them in your bedroom ever. It's disrespectful. Yeah. And so things like that I cleared out many years ago. But when we moved into this house, I knew that I just had a feeling. I was like, I want a more neutral bedroom, which shocked him because he'd seen my last two bedrooms that I had designed. And he was like, wait, what? So, I mean, it's like whites and grays and blacks and very like light powdery blues. And we each have a dream catcher that were gifts to us, I think from each other, over our side of the bed. We have our bed, our end tables, and our lamps. We each have a clock. We each have like the books that we're reading for fun, not for work. We have our massagers. We have like a back massager and a Theragun and a humidifier. We have like some functional stuff. Like I'll lay in bed with the massager and read my book, but there's no work. There's no laptops allowed. We have a cell phones down when we get into bed policy. And then we have one photo that's just kind of a placeholder, not photo, painting. That's a very neutral color and really isn't a painting of anything. And then we have the Desiderata poem blown up in a framed thing, which is the poem that was read at our wedding. And Beautiful. That's it. So we have like all neutral colors. We have a bed. But anyway, what you were saying, all those things, that makes me feel good about the progress that I have made. of like setting up a
for
sanctuary.
sure.
And I am aiming for that with children. And I'm lucky in that I've worked in a lot of homes. And I've gotten the experience of seeing and deciding what I would want a nursery and an older child's room to look like. And one of my big things is their bedroom will not be their playroom. Their toys will live somewhere else.
100%.
The
If
toys will live in a
possible,
bin.
I think this
and
is the...
yeah. I know that's not always possible. But there'll be a bin in the living room on the main floor. Eventually we'll finish the basement. There'll be a playroom in the basement. But like there will be books. There'll be some bookshelves in their room, and there'll be a bed in their room, and there'll be a chair in their room, and there'll be stuffies and blankets and pillows and their clothes in their closet and stuff like that. But like their bedroom will be their bedroom, will be the place they sleep, relax, calm down.
100%.
And whatever they're needing, when they grow up and start to have little personalities, right? Factor all that in. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's
this is
beautiful, like what you've done.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I was just thinking out loud. Sorry.
This is, what you've already created is amazing. And I think that when you start to become more aware, and even my own bedroom is like so calm, and it's the complete opposite of the rest of our house. There's other areas of our house that are like, we've a living room that's, just about that yin and yang. Like we've one room in our house that is very bright. It's like where our kitchen, our dining room, but there's lots of light. There's amazing views of the Dublin mountains, and there's bright paintings and brightness in it, and it's very me. Like if you walked in, like you would know this is Patricia's. But our living room, which most people are a bit surprised when they come into our house, because they're like, when we first decorated it, it was like yellow and bright furniture and super bright. But now it's like a quite dark. It's a dark green and it's very yin. So it's that like it's a place where we'll go with like the fire and it's cozy, but you have these opposites of rooms. So you've created these spaces. So bedrooms need to be more yin. They need to be places of calm and relaxed. And then you have those yang rooms, which can be bright and light, and where you're living and where you're spending time. And it's about that dance within the house, and knowing that, the room or whatever it's designed for, I know that when we spend time when I spend time in my little living room that's like all green, dark and everything, it's like I'm just kind of going deep. I'm reading a book, I'm with my friends, or the fire lit and cozy. We don't spend much time there during the day, because we're out in the bright rooms. So it is finding that and bedrooms to be that more yin and calm. So it sounds like you've done an amazing job. And just onto that with the kids and with the closets and the rooms, like I love that in terms of if you can, and I suppose this is always about like availability of space in different people's homes, but for what I've seen over the years with families and with bedrooms, and especially with children and their stuff, is that a lot of people see the solution to the excess that children have is more storage containers. And I'm like, no, storage containers are not the answers, not storage solutions. It's about making sure that what's in your home is being used, like that it's being that it's because oftentimes that children accumulate a lot, and then it just gets into that storage container. It doesn't move, and it's just left there. It's like another one and another one and another one. And that, from a Feng Shui perspective, like when I'm talking about Feng Shui, I'm talking about it being like flow and ease. And those storage containers look innocent, but for me, that's where the energy gets stuck and stagnant. Like they look innocent. It's like it looks organized, but it's not that it's not organized, but it's like, is it being used? Is the energy flow being used? When it comes to Feng Shui from that perspective, if I go into someone's house, like I work virtually all the time now, like we don't do in person, but when I would go into someone's house and see, the dishes on the counter, or the kids' playroom covered in toys, or the laundry basket full and the laundry room a bit busy, like people will be like, often people are like, oh, my house is a mess. Like, you can't come and see it. This is a bit my excuse. This is like, and they're like, it's all bad feng shui. And I'm like, those things are life. You know, the kids' playroom with toys scattered, or their bedroom. I'm like, that's life. That is not bad feng shui. Like, you know, you're going to eventually fill the dishwasher. You know that the laundry is going to get done. The toys are being played with. And it's the storage container that's been there for a year with full of kid stuff that hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
That's the problem to me. Because I'm like, there's nothing moving there. It's just creating stagnancy. And where we have stagnancy, you have dis-ease, disharmony. And that's, and it's like left unconsciously there. So that would be always my invitation to people, is like, don't buy more storage containers. Get rid of this. And, you know, we had this, I don't have children, but my husband and I had a very interesting relationship with bookshelves. So originally in this office, I had a giant red bookshelf. In our living room, we had a huge bookshelf. In our kitchen dining room, another huge bookshelf. So when you have bookshelves, what do you put on them? Books. So they were just like full of books, like full. So this one, they were just jammed. Some of them were replica books. Because when I met my husband, like, we had very similar interests, so some of the books were like duplicates. And then I was like, what are we doing with all these bookcases? So slowly but surely, we just got rid of them all, like all of them, it's a dance, because you're like, oh, like, will I ever read this book again? No. Is there someone else that would benefit from this book? Yes. And now we have like a few little shelves that are very well curated books. They're like books that if someone came to my house, I'd be like, you know, oh, that one, that you might like that. Or we also, when we're not here, our house is on Airbnb. So I'm like, these are, you know, interesting, diverse, different, but there's only like 2 shelves as opposed to 3 giant bookcases.
That's really interesting. Now you're in hitting me personally, because I like books, but you're right. It's time to. Some of them are like old references. Some of them are really for work. I'm at home now. A lot of them, a shelf of them I carry to work so that people know I read them. You know, it's like, here's my technical history, right? It's like a resume or a what do they call it? An ego wall kind of thing. And now all of a sudden I'm looking at my bookshelf saying, no, I'm never going to pick up that math book again. Or, you know, some of these are past their prime. And then there's other ones, like my kids have gave me a nice, not Tolstoy, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings set. You know, I was a big Lord of the Rings fan. And somebody went to New Zealand and got me a nice book set. It's like, okay, that's a keeper there. There's so much to this. There's so much timing. There's so many ripples. You know, this is even the bookshelf thing. You know, the ripples of passing out your books, you know, passing them along, paying it forward, maybe, you know. This is golly, folks, pay attention to this. This is hitting me hard. I'm going to have to reorganize things. I have storage containers too, and I've learned to think of storage containers as garbage cans. Don't hang on to the garbage can once you've filled it up. If you're never going to pull that, you know, if it's like Christmas stuff and Thanksgiving stuff, that's fine. But if it's just stuff you don't know what to do with, just throw it away.
And it's like they're my nemesis,
Patricia.
Or donate it, you know. And I love that what you said, like, these books are like my ego shelf. It's like, look how many books I've read, you know, like, look how smart I am. And that is so, and it's okay, you have to come to that ego place and be like, oh yeah, I see that. But also for me, I was like, this is kind of a mad story, but when I first, like, one of my very first feng shui consultations was in this little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. And this lady hired me. I got to her house and we were walking around, and this small little bookshelf. And I was like, tell me about this. Because, you know, I'm not like, I don't tell people, get rid of all your books. Because just like you talked about the Tolstoy, you're like, oh, that has a different meaning. That's nothing to do with like I'm holding on to this for whatever. There's a different connection, a different meaning. So it's the same with a piece of art. If I see a piece of art and I'm like, oh, that's a terrible piece of art, I'm like, tell me about it. And then you're like, oh, this is the story. Or my.
That's right.
That's the consultant's line is like, tell me more about this.
Tell me more. And then you can give your diagnosis. But when it came to this woman, I was like, tell me about this bookshelf. And she's like, well, that bookshelf, that's there since I moved in. So she had moved in with her husband into his family home. And I was like, and the books? And she's like, oh, yeah, those books are there since. They were there too. And I'm like, okay, so when did you move in? And she's like, 32 years ago.
Yeah, she doesn't have anything to do with the books. Yeah.
And, just, and we just think, and most of us may not live in our houses for that long or have lived in them for that long, but, the idea of just that area, I've no idea, I can't remember what area of that area of her life that represented, but imagine just like moving that and just like the kind of like little ripple shift of like something moving and changing in that environment. And I always think about the different areas, like you talked about the storage containers being the garbage, unless it's, what are the logical things to store? And our attic, I can tell you, I know exactly what's in our attic. And we seem to have a lot. I said again this time, I was like, we have a lot of Christmas decorations. Like it takes up like a third.
Right. So many.
Because he loves like outdoor ones and all of this. But I'm like, at least I know that every year that stuff's going to come down. It's going to be moved. It's going to be used. And it has a purpose. Yep. Like that's the thing. If there's stuff in your, and it's waiting. But that, like, just in terms of like location of things, like the attic is literally bearing down on your shoulders, your head. When I've seen people like literally do clearing of their attics, they felt a relief. Their mind has felt clearer because it's a mirror. It goes back to the sentence at the very beginning. Your environment is a mirror of you. So oftentimes things in the attic are a mirror of like the mind and the overwhelm and the stress, the busyness. And then the basements can be this, the unlooked at. It's kind of like, that's not, I'm just going to push that under the carpet. I'll just put that in the basement. I'll put that in the basement. Don't want to look at it, put it in the basement. And that can be very reflective of people who are just not ready to deal with things. And you can do it in the attic as well. But this, if we talk about the ripple of this, the idea of, say, for kids, letting go is a muscle that we have to build. Everything change, and that's the idea of Feng Shui. It's about change and flow, and life is about change. Nothing's ever going to stay the same. So if children start like learning to let go of physical things, like on the physical level in their childhood, they're going to be better in life on the heavier things, on the emotional things that this is a life skill in being able to like let go and declutter, and it's okay, life is moving, we're going to change, and not hold on.
Yeah
I love that you just said that, because I was just thinking that I wanted to bring up the idea of toy rotation, which I think is becoming more and more popular and well known in parent circles, is that parents, to keep the house from becoming so cluttered or so messy throughout the day, especially when you have young children who are lots and lots of toys, and then it's just like the whole floor is covered in toys, and every night, you're either trying to get the kids to clean it up or you're cleaning it up and putting everything back in bins. And toy rotation, where you only have like a certain number of toys out at any given time, and then the rest are in a storage bin in the basement or wherever, the closet, wherever it might be. And then every like couple of weeks or every month, you take those 10 or 20 toys and put those in the bin and pull out the other ones. And it keeps kids interested versus having access to 600 toys all of the time, because then they all become boring, right? They get sick of all of them. And then they whine or they want new ones or whatever. So it makes like the excitement of the toy last longer. but it also reduces clutter in the home in general.
Yeah.
And so I think of toy rotation as almost like a seasonal thing too, is where like toys get rotated. And then the last thing that you just said, Patricia, the kids learning to let go of physical items translates into their emotional intelligence and strength and resilience and ability to change and shift and step into a new phase of their life. And I think that's huge. And it's something I've never really thought of before. I think in our family, this is a very vague memory, but then I've also worked with families where every year at Christmas time ish, the kids, mom or dad or both, would go down with the kids, or they'd go through their toys, and the kids each had to pick like 3 or 5 or 10 toys that they wanted to donate that year for Christmas. And it was one, teaching them to let go, and because they were going to get a bunch of new stuff for Christmas anyway, but it was teaching them to let go of toys they really, and think like, do you really like ever play with this? Do I? When's the last time I touched this toy?
Make
And 2,
choices. Yeah.
it teaches them to pay it forward, to pass that on to someone. You could put it in the Toys for Tots bin. You can go donate it to ARC or Goodwill. And then another child gets to play with that toy. And especially if it's like plastic, then that's one less toy being, toxic thing that's going to end up in the garbage dump. And yeah, I just never really thought of the releasing of the physical toy. I've always thought of as a great practice for kids. I'd never really thought of the connection to it actually training their emotional health as well.
For sure.
I think that's such a beautiful concept, because it is. It's hard. We get emotionally attached to our things, and it becomes almost like a scarcity mindset too, of like, well, but someday I might need that. Well, then you'll be able to like believe in your ability to purchase it at that time or get access to something at that time. Yeah.
It's a bit as well, like the books, like, will you be able to Google it? Like, will you be able to Google it or get that information if you definitely with the kids, I've seen such a change. And one of the fun tricks I had with my clients, I say to their kids, I'm like, get them to, it's very similar to the Santa list, but like get them to think about where they want to go, what they want to see happen for themselves. What are things they want to welcome into their life, and write a list. And they're like, okay, well, there's 10 things on the list, so we need to get rid of 10 things. We need to make space for them to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a great idea. I like that.
This conversation's bringing up so many personal stories for me. So I hope everyone's enjoying this dive into my life.
It's a new thing we're thinking about is really paying attention to our environment. Being conscious and doing things consciously.
Well, I'm really in the thick of it right now, because Patricia, when you and I spoke and scheduled this interview, I wasn't pregnant yet. And now I'm almost 17 weeks in, and I am like, the room, 2 things, and I don't want to forget them. One, I have a question about the books. Don't let me forget. And 2, the nursery, the room that's becoming the nursery. And we've known that was going to be the nursery since we moved in. But in the meantime, it turned into our like Zen / workout room. So I was a yoga practitioner for years. And so I have mats and blocks and blankets, and I've got the Hindu Devis and Devas, and I've had an altar with like all my crystals and candles and flowers and conch shells and sage and like, all of the things. And so I've always had a space or part of a room that was completely dedicated to yoga, all of my yoga books. I have a bookshelf that is just yoga studies, just yogic Hindu books. And just all kinds of like ceremony. I've got like 8 decks of cards, different tarot cards, and I would do readings and all kinds of things. And so that bedroom my husband and I both wanted a place to work out. We tried to make it in the basement, but our basement's not finished and we never wanted to go down there. So we made this like a combined meditation workout room, kind of all in one. And we loved it. We were like, oh my gosh, this is great. We have a whole room just dedicated to all this stuff. And very recently I started clearing out that room. We had to kind of accept that we didn't really have a space for that anymore. Unless we got rid of our guest room, which we also don't want to do. We want to be able to host family and stuff.
Time moves on.
So as I'm clearing out, I'm moving some of those books onto different bookshelves around the house. And I'm, basically coming to the conclusion that this giant altar with all of my yoga tools, it doesn't have a place, and it's not going to, at least for now. And so I've been working with the acceptance of this thing that has taken up space in my life for 7 or 8 years now, and has been like a major devotional thing. The acceptance of boxing that up for now until we do finish the basement, and
into
having those
storage
tools.
containers.
I know. Well, we will have space for a workout space eventually. And some of those key items have moved to like the landing at the top of the stairs, some like extra special ones. But a lot of those pieces are being wrapped up and lovingly boxed away, in order to make space for this child that we have been praying for 9 months, and is finally on her way. And we are, committed to building a sacred space for her. And so coming to terms with something that's been such a huge part of my identity, being some of it boxed away, coming to an acceptance of that, but then also knowing that doesn't mean it's not part of me still. It doesn't mean I still can't, like, my yoga mat's still going to sit out at the top of the stairs. I can throw it down and do yoga anytime. I can meditate anytime. There's many spaces in my house where I can just sit and meditate. And so kind of releasing the need for a physical representation of something that is innately just in me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. For sure. And I think like it's a dance, it depends on your space. You have to just allow for your space.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in my office now, I have my altar here beside me with my crystals and my deities and all the things over here. But I didn't have it in my office for a really long time. And I just had like one little space that I was like, oh, I can actually do that now. But before, my husband was in, and, speaking about this, the spare room is always a very interesting one, because we have two spare rooms, and we just basically were like, no one's going to be in office now. We're like, we don't care. If people come, we can move the stuff. Yeah. Because it's like, we used to share, me and Ken used to share an office, and we're like, well, what's our priority? And we're like, well, we don't have that many visitors, like, really. And if we are, we can just change it. So we had someone come the other day. We were able to move things. It didn't take, it took us 5 minutes, but it also gave Ken a space that he has for his work. And that, because Ken now has his own space, I have my altar space, and he has his in his office. But just and like, if there's special pieces that you love, like, they can still be in and around your home in different places that you have that anchor of it. So the packing away is totally cool. And if it's like knowing that there'll be a space, or just kind of putting it out there and be like, hey, home, is there some places that this could be rehomed? My little altar is very mobile, because I purposely had like all the smallest little things ever, because we're on the road so much. So I want to be able to bring some of them with me. Yeah. So I have like one little thing that it all wraps into. So it just kind of pops out. But in our house in Greece, there's no space for it. We have a small space, and there's no space for it in Greece. So I'm okay with that. But when I'm here and I have a bit of space, I'll do it. So it is a dance with like prioritizations, and how beautiful that you've made this space for your new baby to come in. But also just know that you can still bring some of those pieces into different parts of your home and have them as little anchors for your, for your connection to spirit and that beautiful history. And I would not be adverse to doing something with a spare room. It's interesting.
I'm kind of
Murphy beds.
So as we're talking, I'm thinking like the spare room it's in like one of the smaller bedrooms. There's really no space. Like once the bed is in there, that's it. That's all that's in there. I mean, like a couple little end tables, and a mirror on the wall, but that's it. And that room, we literally don't touch that room unless we have someone coming to stay with us. There's nothing in that room that we use. I have some coats and stuff in the closet, but that's like I keep thinking, one, though, how important it is to us to be able to host people. We love our people, like our friends and family. Like that's value number one, is our community, our tribe of people. And I mean, I would say maybe 6 or 7 times a year, we have somebody staying in that room. So it's less than once a month. And in between, we literally don't step foot in that room. And I'm like, it feels like a waste of space sometimes. But it's not so like a Murphy bed where we can flip it up and like work out in that room and then flip the bed down when like it's a big queen, it's a nice bed. It's like, it can't carry it downstairs and then carry it back up every time someone comes to visit. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We're sitting on it right now.
Play with it. Sit with it. But, exactly. And these things can change. Some, we can check out. I've been looking for because with Ken, I was looking up for our bedroom in our where was I looking for? I can't remember. One of our houses for a Murphy bed in one of our rooms, anyways, because I was like, and they're really easy to make on I've been literally looking up Murphy beds, but the thing is, when you see that space and you can sit in it and be like,
you can get
sit in the space and be like, kits and everything. It's pretty amazing, actually. But the other part is just, it's about honoring yourself and, what are the spaces, for me, I don't have like a space to my husband in his office. It's better set up for his meditation space. But for me, I just meditate out on the couch in our very dark room in the mornings, and it's perfect, but if I'm in Greece, it's different. There's a lovely couch, and my husband does it in the bedroom because we don't have that space. So just because you haven't got for me, like, so interesting. I've worked with people in like tiny studio apartments. One lady had this like a New York studio apartment. She worked in it, she lived in it, she ran her business from it, and you would not know the difference between it being her workspace during the day and her living room when she finished work. Like, so it was like living room workspace to nighttime, like to the extent where we even swapped out the colors of the cushions so that it was like a swap of like, this is a different place. So this is where it's like, you can be creative with it and be like, oh, well, how could it work? And how can I work this and find the space that's going to work it's going to be best for me. That's where it all, and I've seen it happen in people using their spaces very efficiently and very fun. But like Alexa's apartment in New York just blew my mind, because during the day it had a beautiful couch with a throw and art and her desk all set up, and then at nighttime like basically when she finished work, it swapped out for evening setup, and it was completely different. So it's fun to be able to, like, our environments don't need to be set in stone. Like, there's always going to be flexibility to change things around.
Very interesting. That makes me think of tiny houses and, the application of Feng Shui to various, it's like, like with a kid, okay, here's one room, here's a little space, and then you kind of work it up to an enormous, complicated space with multiple people to get a handle on it. That's making a New York studio apartment different places. That's got to be interesting.
Yeah. Oh,
right,
yeah.
So
it was just amazing. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead and respond to that. Yeah.
Even and like literally just this week, we had one of our clients, herself and her family lived in a small mobile home / kind of caravan while they were waiting to buy a new home.
Mm-hmm.
And we feng shuied it. Because she said when we moved into the caravan, things weren't going that well. They'd been trying to get the right houses. They'd all fallen through. And she's like, I just need to change the energy of where I am right now. If I change the energy of this, it's going to help me get what we want. So the size of the house or the size of the space doesn't matter. We can change the energy of every space.
Yeah, no matter where you are. That's a great lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
I love it. So, Patricia, have you noticed, or has there been one or two consistent things that you could offer the parents that are listening that you've noticed help families harmonize? Something small or simple that you could share with our audience that they could put in place on their own to help harmonize the parent-child relationship.
Good starting point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would start, the very first thing I would do is start with fresh eyes around your home. And that means just like arriving in your home as if it's the first time you've been there and just having a look around at the places that haven't been touched. Just kind of become more conscious of your environment. And it's a massive thing. And I've literally had people message me and tell me, I just moved this and did the fresh eyes exercise and I feel better. And I'm like, great, from this one thing. So you walk around, you're like, that shouldn't be there. Why do I still have that? That's broken. Let me get out of it. Anything that's broken, that's not working, like, get it out, any of those storage things, gone. That is going to, first of all, like have a ripple effect, because we have no idea the impact of broken things, not working things in our space and how it's impacting the energy for everyone in the house. And the second thing I would say is very simple. Have a beautiful family photo in your living room of everyone together. This does not need to be the perfect family portrait from the Christmas, thing. Just from the funnest time out you had, whether it's a selfie on your phone, just like bring that beautiful energy into your space. Remind yourselves of that time when everyone's great together. And then do the same in the children's bedrooms, like bring in a picture of the family together to remind and to keep anchoring in that sense of connection and happiness and joy within the family.
I love that. Gorgeous. And Patricia, what are the services that you offer and where can people find you?
So people can find me at Patricia Lohan, LOHAN.com. And that is where I have lots of different resources for different people. And actually I have one specifically for parents. Typically it's moms who come into my world. So it's patricialohan.com/moms. And there's a guide for setting up your bedroom. There's also a resource, a meditation for a peaceful and harmonious home. So that alone will just like help you set that intention and anchor that in. And a video training about bedrooms for children. That's a great place to start. And I also have like a mini course, which gets you kind of started into understanding what Feng Shui is. People typically work with me through my Powerhouse program, which is a process that they come into our world and send us the information about your home. And we create a bespoke report based on the information you sent to us about what's going on, how things are working, send us like where your house is. And we do all the analysis and basically you have your bespoke report to implement, while myself and my team support virtually to get all the remedies in, get it into balance, get it into harmony. And we've got a beautiful community of women from all over the world practicing this journey and this process and seeing just beautiful things happen for themselves and their family. So it's a joy.
Awesome. And
That's
all
what
of
it looks
that,
like, folks.
and all of that, we'll link all of your links in the show notes so everyone can just scroll down and find you and click very, very easily. Is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you wanted to share?
No, I think we're good. If you take action on the things that we've talked about today, like, you're going to see some changes and feel better about your environment. So yeah, that's enough. And you don't have to do it all together and all today. Just like do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing thing.
It's a journey. Yeah, it's a journey for sure. And enjoy it, enjoy it.
Yeah, it feels good when you do declutter or organize even just like one small thing. I feel so accomplished that day. I'm just like, that's another weight off my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here and spending time with us.
You're so welcome. It's been a pleasure.
To meet you, Patricia.
I really enjoyed this. Yeah, you too.
Well, did you learn anything new? Or have you heard all of this before? Do you agree with us, disagree with us, have a question? We want to see you in our inbox or via the Patreon page in the show notes. Tap on either link to send us your feedback, share your own parenting story, or support our mission of providing a connected community for all parents. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you loved this episode, click on that little star and give us 5 of them so we can get visible to other parents who are looking for us. This is your weekly reminder. Parents, you already have everything you need inside of you. You are a strong, loving, capable parent. And here, you are never alone. I'll see you next week.